Yo, what is going on? Today we are going to be doing a time series analysis, and we're going to be doing this in Python and in Pandas. We're going to do a couple of different things here. We're going to look at some rollings, so meaning we're going to look at rolling windows within Pandas. We are going to be doing some standard deviations and some means and some rolling averages, and also some week over week deltas using diff, which is going to be cool. And then finally, we're going to plot this all out. So that's what we have planned today for today's live stream. If you want to check out more information about this, head over to dataindependent.com to get more information on it. So let's jump into it. All right, so I have a fresh Pandas or a Jupyter notebook here, and the data set we're going to be working with today is going to be tsa.gov/coronavirus/passenger-throughput. And on here, what we have, let me zoom in here, we have a date, and then we have total traveler throughput. And then we also have versus the same time last year. So you can see here, for example, there were 634,000 passengers that flew on 9/30 versus 2 million that happened last year. So because this looks pretty interesting from a kind of analysis perspective or looking at the macro environment perspective, this is the data set we're going to work with. So I'm over here in my Jupyter notebook. I'm going to rename this, and this is pair programming number 2, TSA traveler time series analysis. Great. Not able to do one of these things here. Let's see if that colon was the problem. Yep, the colon was the problem. So let's do that. And then we'll import pandas as PD. And then let's make sure we can get our data set. So normally you'd have to download this via CSV, but I'm really hoping that pandas will be able to read this cleanly because they have a very handy function called read clipboard. And so if you just highlight all of your text, you copy it, and then you go over here. I'm really hoping this will work. pd.read clipboard. And let's see if we work here. You see it just ran df.head. And so we have date, total, traveler, throughput, blah, blah, blah. So this looks pretty dirty. Doesn't look like it worked that well. So the next thing, in order to try to do this, there's a couple ways to try to mess around with this, but the one that I like the most is to just go to a scratch spreadsheet. And so you go to a scratch spreadsheet and then you paste it from here. And then here you can see it's pretty clean. So in order to get this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this real quick. I'm going to call this year over year. Just call this column year over year. That's easy. Great. And then I'm just going to call this one to make it simple. Travelers. And then we have our date. Awesome. So now when you copy this one should work a lot better. So I'm going to read clipboard again, run that. Then I'm going to call df head. And there we go. So now it's clean and it works. And the next thing I'm going to call is df info to see if it picked up the dates or if it didn't. And you can see here the column name is date, but it doesn't look like it picked up that it was a date. And so what I'm going to do first, what I want to do here, well, I'm going to make it easy for you guys, and I'm going to save this data set real quick. So I'm going to say to CSV and call it TSA travelers, 9:30. I like to do year first, 0930.csv, index equals 0 because I don't want you to have the index. It doesn't matter. So I just saved that to a CSV. So instead of reading clipboard up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read CSV, and then I'm going to call the TSA travelers one. Beautiful. So I'll just save that information. And why don't we just restart while we're at it? Restart our kernel. Go ahead and run that. Great. df.head, we got the data set that's right there. It's the same thing. But now I want to turn this date column into an actual date column. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to call the date. I'm going to say pd.toDateTime because it's going to convert a series to a datetime. And what do I want to convert? Well, I want to convert that column that we're on right now. So you'll notice here how I'm setting this new column, which is actually just the same one. So it's like I'm overwriting the column, saying it's equal to pandas.toDateTime. So what it's going to do is it's going to take this column right here, convert it to datetime, and then it's going to overwrite itself. And so now we get our dates. And whenever I do these kind of feature engineering types of manipulations, I like to put them right after the load. So right here, it's going to load up the data set, and then it's going to do my feature engineering right away, all in the same cell, and I'll run that. Cool. I'll run that, and you can see that these are now reformatted. So if I wanted to check what column type this was, I'm just gonna do df.info, and you can see here that now it's a date time. So that's what we wanted. That's a good thing. Looks like we have objects here. I want to see what type of object this is, at least the travelers or the numbers, because it might read this as a string with the comma. I'm not so sure, but in order to triple check that, I'm just going to call in a lock or an iLock, which is just, give me a single value. And you can see here that this is wrapped in a string. Well, at least I think it is. And so you can go type and just see what that is. You can see, yep, that's a string, but it's really an integer. So I want to turn that into an integer. And one way to see if you can do that is you can do as type int. It has no object as that. Okay. And let's see if we can multiply it by 1. Nope, we get the same thing. So then now the good question is convert string to int Python. And in fact, pandas probably has an easy way to do this. So we'll see how do we convert. So we just can take our column and then as type in on top of the column. So let me take this, travelers, and then we'll do, then we'll do as type int. And it says, okay, invalid literal for int with base 10. And then we have our string right here. All right, so the first thing I want to do is I want to remove these the commas from the string. So I can do a .str to call it the string stuff. I'm going to say .replace, and I'm going to say, let's go over here, let's do pandas replace. And I did a tutorial on this one, but to replace, we want to do series replace. Yep, simple string replacement, great. String that can, okay. Number of elements case. String that can be a character. Old, no. Okay, so we're gonna give it 2 of them. And we're gonna say old, and we'll see if that works. Great. So what we just did here is we just said, hey, replace all the commas with an empty string. And then this is what we get right here. And then now I'm curious, what is this first? So it looks like it's still string because it calls out like that, and we can triple check. Yep, and it's still string, but I bet on this one, what we'll be able to do is we'll be able to do .as type int, and there we go. That's good. So now it's an int64. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna take this manipulation we just did, and I'm again gonna throw this up at the top for to overwrite my column. So whenever I load up my new data, dang it. So whenever I load up my new data, it will replace this. And then I need to do the same thing for the year-over-year column. So I'll take this one and go ahead and run that, and then run this. Great, so now we have our integers right there. And I'll do df.info again to double check. Great, so now we have dates and we have int64s. Isn't it crazy how much manipulation you need to do with data just to set it up? Anyway, so we have that right now. So let's go ahead and with this data set, let's just go ahead and plot travelers and date and just see what it looks like over the course of the year. And so I'm gonna go df.plot, and then let's do x equals df, because we're calling it right on our data frame, we can actually just pass the column names, and then y equals travelers. Cool, and there you go. So as you can see here, it looks like it was, let's see, actually, let's get, let's look at our date ranges, because I'm not exactly sure how many data points we have, because it looks like it just starts right before the beginning of May, which it's a little bit less data than I would like, but whatever, it's not the worst thing in the world. And in order to do this, you can do .describe. And so it just gives us our regular, our integer ones, but that's fine. Let's just look at date, and then let's call .min on date, and let's see when our first date is. So you can see here it's 4/30, so that's April 30th, and that looks like it. Yep, it's right there. So we can see what the travelers were for this past year, or these past couple months. But let's go ahead and let's take a look at, see if we can plot on the same one, the year over year, to see how it compared to last year too. So we have 2 charts here, but you can see here that right around the same time in May, it was much higher. So, we're talking 2.6 million right here versus 200,000, which is pretty wild. And so one kind of, what's the word I want to say? I want to do a little bit more feature engineering where I want to find out how many less travelers are there right now versus the year over year. And in order to get that, I will do df absolute year over year, which just stands for like the absolute number year over year. And this is going to equal, what is this going to equal? I'm just putting this over here. Great, so absolute year over year. So df year over year, and we're going to say minus df travelers. df travelers. And then I also want to get the percentage increase. So let me go ahead and let me calcs, and then I want to get the percent increase. And so I'm going to say percent year over year, pers year over year. And in order to do this one, we're going to actually divide. Oops. So we're going to take travelers divided by year over year. We'll do that, see what we get here. And as you can see, we get absolute year over year. So this 444,000 is 208 minus the 634. So we know how much bigger it is. And then also we can see what percentage of year over year is it is. And so right now on September 30th, we're at 30% of what we were last year, which is kind of wild. And so if we were to plot, what I want to plot here on the Y, I want to do pers year over year. So I can see at what time are we, great. See, this is pretty wild. So you can see here that we were 5% of travel capacity at the end of April. Which is absolutely wild. And you can see here we're only now creeping up into the 30%. So people are still not flying, which, given the macro environment, I'm not surprised about. But anyway, so let's do some manipulations here. And remember, if you ever want to get rid of this kind of garbage that just gets printed out, you can just put a colon on the end of your plot and it doesn't get printed. Great. So now I want to plot this is just the absolute numbers, but I want to plot a rolling average because you can see here it's really spiky, right? And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a rolling average. And what are we going to say here? I'm going to say plot absolute numbers. And then down here, I'm going to say plot rolling average. Now, one thing I want to make sure about is this rolling average. Well, let's see what we can do here. So the way we call a rolling average is we are going to say df.group by. So it's going to group by something. Actually, no, we're going to do df rolling. Let's see here. Let's see. Pandas rolling. Making sure I got the right. Yeah, we're just going to call rolling right away. Size of the moving window. Great, and that's expanding. Group. Great. I'm just making sure that get you guys what you need here. Great. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do the group by rolling. So we're going to call df.rolling, and then you can see in our instrument or in our instructions here, we need to provide a window that we're going to do, and the window is just the number of something that you want to roll on. So here, let's do a window of, we'll call it 7 days, because you see here how we have its daily grain, and so if I do 7, that means it's going to do a weekly. And so we'll do df rolling. There it is. And let's look at travelers. And we need to tell it to do something with these 7 observations it did. And so I'm going to tell it to do the mean. And so you can see here for the first couple, it doesn't have anything. But then for these last ones, it does. Now, you can see here, I still want to get the rolling average for this September 30th. But because it's all the way up at the top of my data set, it's not going to have any values to do the rolling, which is why there's none for the first 4. So I'm actually going to switch this data set around. And I'm going to say df.sort values. And I'm going to say by date. And then by default, it's ascending equals true, meaning you will go up. Because descending means you're, like, the way I think about it is you start at the top of the stairs and you descend down. And so you start at the top of your values and go down. But by default, ascending equals true. So let's do this one. We just sorted values. I didn't do it in place. So let's see if we can do in place equals true. and there it is. And so now my values just switched around. So now let me do, there's the plot again, same sort of thing because matplotlib knows to plot these out regularly. And if I do this here, perfect. So you see we switched around the index and now we get the rolling average with our biggest values down at the bottom. And then you can call just plot right on top of this. Great. So it looks like it's actually reversed right now, which isn't lovely. But you can see here that the rolling average, if this was reversed, it'd be going up, up, up. And so now it's a lot more smooth because we are taking a 7-day rolling average. Okay. So let's see, what else do we want to do here? We could plot, well, we could plot two. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's do one more. Plotting two lines on the same chart. Plot 2 lines on the same chart. And in order to do this one, I'm actually going to use matplotlib. So I'm going to import matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Great. And so we're going to plot 2 lines on the same chart. And the 2 lines I want to plot is going to be the number of travelers that we have currently. And then I want to do the percent of year over year so I can see how these two are correlating with each other. And so in order to do that, I'm going to say plt.plot. And then I'm going to say x equals, and then here I actually need to call it the actual data frame. So I'm going to say df date, and then y equals df travelers. Let's make sure this works. Got an unexpected keyword x. That's fabulous. I think I could say line, and then that would work. No. Plot dot line. Nope. Let's see here. Line plot matplotlib. Pyplot plot. Great. X and Y. So it's an array or scalar. So let's see an example here. Yep. And so you'd plot your big X and your big Y. Let's see if, let's just give it the, let's not even do the X and the Y. Maybe that is the issue. Oh, no, doesn't have a line. Great. So there's our values one more time. And so what's nice is that you can take this and you can go plt.plot, and we will plot on the, let's do the column that we called it, which is percent year over year. So you just put that right below it, and then it will show you this percent. But as you can see, it is, we want to put it on a second axis. We want to put this orange line on the right-hand axis because right now it's getting drowned out by the blue line here. So I'm going to say second axis matplotlib, plotting with different scales. Fabulous. So we look at how they do it right there. And so what we want to do is, it looks like we're going to have to basically set our axis. And so let's go ahead and take this and we will use it. And so we'll take all of this right here. And so I'm actually going to replace this. And so we're going to say our figure and axis 1 equals plt.subplots. So that's basically telling matplotlib that you're about to make some subplots. And subplots are 2 plots within the same figure. We're going to do our first one red. And then so now it's saying axis 1 set label. So your axis 1 is going to be the one on this side. And so here I'm going to say total travelers. And then set Y label. Oops, no, that was my mistake. This one's going to be date because that's the x-axis. Oops. So let's do date. And then this one is going to be total travelers. Fabulous. And then we're going to plot. This is where we're going to plot the same thing that we had beforehand. So we're going to plot our date right here, and we're going to plot our total travelers right here. And then the color is going to equal the color, which is red. And then Y tick axis here. I don't really care about the Y ticks, and so I'm just going to delete those. So let's first make sure that this works. And so in order to do that, I'm just going to comment out the plot number 2. And then I also want to plot out or comment out this stuff. Just straight up delete it. So there we go. So there we have our total travelers, and it's in red, which is great. And then now we're going to make an axis number 2. And so twin x means that you're going to have the same x-axis as axis 1. Great. There it is. So now we have our second axis getting set over here. We're going to say it's blue. Fabulous. We're going to set our Y label, which is year over year percent change, or percent. Great. And then we're going to plot our X and our Y, and our date is going to be right there. And then our data 2 is going to be that year over year that we had beforehand. So DF year over year. Great. Color is color. And then Y ticks, again, I don't care about the Y ticks. So let's go ahead and do this. So now you can see that we have our percentage with our year over years, and it's a bit messy, but this the red one is going to be the total travelers. Oh, I don't want year over year. I want percent year over year. I was like, that doesn't look right. Percent year over year. Great. So you can see here that those two are pretty correlated actually. So when your travelers are pretty small, the percent is pretty small, and vice versa. But this is actually kind of it's kind of tight for me, and so I'm going to say fig.fig size, and I'm going to say 1212 has no figure. All right, let's see here. Fig size. I think I can do fig size fits somewhere in here. I always forget where it fits. Has no attribute fig size, no problem. Let's see where this is going to go. I might be able to do it right within the plot. Fig size equals 1212. Okay, I'm not getting this. So fig size matplotlib subplots. Great. So right when you create the subplots, you just take the fig size and you put it right in there. So let's go back over here. Let's get rid of our, and it looks like I put it right in the fig size there. So there's our big fat fig size, but that's way too big for me. So I'm going to do 8. I'm going to do 15, and then let's do a 6. So there you go. That's a little bit better. I mean, it's a bit more spread out. And let's give our let's give it a title. I just want to make sure that this works right away. Yep. So I'm going to say total travelers with year over year change. And there it is. So there, what we just did is we just looked at a time series of traveler data and then did some rolling averages, and then also did some plotting and 2 plots on the same line. So thank you for joining this pair programming. Head over to